I'm ranking every single Binding of Isaac transformation in terms of the likelihood of you actually getting the transformation and the usefulness that the transformation gives you throughout an entire run. So hey, I'm actually trying to hit 25,000 subscribers by the end of July, and if you take a look, we are so stupidly close. So hey, if you enjoy the stuff, if you wouldn't mind making sure you're subbed down below, I would appreciate you. Either way, hope you guys enjoy the video. First transformation up here is Guppy. So Guppy is already out of the bat the best transformation outright. I don't think there's any argument there. But in case you don't know what Guppy does, it grants you flight right out of the box. Getting flight from a transformation is always very nice, especially when there aren't actually that many items that do give you flight. Don't get me wrong, there are a good amount of items that do, but an extra chance to get flight does always bump up transformations to make it even more useful than they already are. But besides just granting flight, in Repentance, Guppy adds a 66% chance to spawn a friendly blue fly when a tier hits an enemy. And the blue flies are just the ones that basically kamikaze themselves into enemies, do double your damage whenever they hit an enemy, and then go away. This is more than doubling the damage you're going to be doing at any point in time. And especially if you have a high fire rate or a high damage stat, you're going to be chunking enemies after you get Guppy. It is such a good transformation. I believe this is probably one of the reasons Edmund McMillan doesn't want to add any more transformations, because he's already peaked with adding in Guppy. It's absolutely insane how good this transformation is. It's super useful because I put it out of 5 out of 4. It's breaking the scale already on the first transformation. It is that good. But the items it includes here are basically all of the Guppy items, and in case you don't know, all of the Guppy items are in the Devil Room pool, which is why it is still a 3 out of 5 to obtain this transformation, even though there are only 7 items and a single trinket to get this transformation. Just because all of the items are in a single pool, which isn't the biggest item pool out there, so it is fairly easy to find all the Guppy items you need. And not only are they in the Devil Room pool, they're also in the Red Chest pool, and I believe some are in the Item Room as well. But even so, it's still very easy to obtain, and one of the most useful things you could get in the entire game. Now, just for that, it's not a 4 out of 4 in likeliness to obtain. It is still a 3 out of 4, because there still aren't that many items, but it is still crazy good. It's basically breaking the scale already. He's going to be doing this, he's going to be doing a little bit of that, and he's just going to be peeking out of the top, because he's already off the scale, but just know he's vibing right there. Next one up is the Beelzebub transformation. Now this one here, similar to a lot of the other transformations, this one grants flight. But alongside that, basically any new enemy room you walk into that has enemy flies, the smaller flies will turn into friendly blue flies, and the larger fly enemies will just become friendly and follow you between rooms and attack other enemies for you. So basically this is like poor man's Guppy, if you want to think about it that way, because you're still generating flies as long as flies exist in the room that you're going into. So it's not as good as Guppy, obviously. It is still very useful. Like, don't get me wrong, this is actually a very useful transformation just because of the flight it grants you and the friendly blue flies. There's no harm in having this. My biggest complaint here is that the friendly flies are just way too loud. Like, if you get to the point where you have so many following you, it is so loud. Like, I don't know if it's just me. It may be just me. Either way, it is still a really good transformation. Now, there are 24 total items that do actually contribute to this transformation, which you may think on paper is actually a pretty good amount, until you look at all the items on this list, and all of them are only in the treasure room. Now, there may be some that are in additional item pools, but the majority of items you will find for this transformation are in the treasure room pool. Now, this is the reason why the likelihood to obtain is only a 2 out of 4, even though it has so many items. Just because the treasure room pool is so bloated with so many items. Okay, 24 out of 700, that's not a lot of items you can actually pull from. And that's partially why Guppy's a 3 out of 4 and Beelzebub is only a 2 out of 4, even though it has more items, just because the pools the items are in are so much more bloated, so it makes it so much harder to get this transformation. Now, with that being said, likelihood it's going to be a 2 out of 4. The usefulness is actually a 3 out of 4 just because of the flight and the flies it does give you. It is a very decent transformation. It's definitely going up there, but it's definitely not one of the best. Now, next up here, one of the most useful transformations, Fun Guy. So what this one does, it's pretty difficult to understand. It gives you 1 red heart container, and that's about it. Now, there are only 10 items in this really, really good transformation. So good thing it gives you one whole red heart to make up for you being so lucky to find 3 fungi items in a single run. Okay, listen, this is not a good transformation. It gives you 1 red heart container, which is nice on like someone like Bethany, maybe sometimes on like Maggie. Other than that, pretty useless. Like not more like a good amount of characters like the Keeper, like the Lost, like other people don't even have red heart containers. So this doesn't even work for them. But for other characters who do have red heart containers, I mean, listen, you're not really going to be begging for 1 more red heart container after you found a mega mush, magic mushroom, something like that. This is really not that useful. The likelihood to obtain is a 1 out of 4. There are still some items in here. Most of them are actually secret room items. I mean, it is a smaller pool. You'll maybe get it in a run, maybe, but it's still a 1 out of 4. You're most likely not going to get it. And even when you do get it, the usefulness is so bad. It's a 1 out of 4. Now, there is still some uses. I mean, having HP is still nice, but like, it's not nice enough. It's pretty down there. It's like right smack that at a 1 out of 1 for me. Next up, we got Seraphim. So what Seraphim does, it grants you flight, similar to basically all the other transformations at this point, except for Fungi, but it also gives you 3 soul hearts on top of it. So the 3 soul hearts on top of the flight is nice. Don't get me wrong, it is nice to get, but it's not that useful, at least in comparison to like the flies you would get from Guppy, or the HP up you would get from Fungi. Am I right, everybody? But it's not super useful. The flight at the end of the day is probably the best thing you're getting out of this transformation, and just the soul hearts on top are just very nice. Now, in total, there are 19 items that do contribute to this transformation, and the majority of them are only in the Angel Room pool. Now, there are others like the Halo or the Rosary that are in other pools, so you can find this transformation outside of the Angel Room, which is very nice. But if you're going Angels, you will most likely find 3 items to contribute to this transformation. So at the end of the day, as long as you're going Angels, the likelihood to obtain is going to be 3 out of 4. Now, obviously, if you're going Devils, the likelihood to obtain is like 0, because you're not really going for the items in the pool. But as long as you're going Angels, it's like a 3 out of 4. And on top of that, the usefulness, I did put a 3 out of 4 as well, just because the flight, again, is very nice to have. Besides that, the Soul Hearts is just a little cherry on top that is nice to obtain as well. So it's a good 3 out of 3, but it's probably like a lower 3 out of 3. In terms of usefulness here. So it's probably going to be sitting right about there, just right below Beelzebub and Guppy. Alright, next up is Bob. One of, if not the best transformations you could ask for in the game. But what this transformation does, Isaac leaves a trail of green poisonous crete as he walks around that deals 6 damage per second, and on top of that, you get poison immunity. Keep in mind, it's poison immunity, not explosion immunity, so if something like a mushroom blows up, you'll be perfectly fine, but if a bomb goes off, you're gonna be taking damage. There are only 4 items in this transformation. As you can see here, I can read them off because there are so few. Bob's Rotten Head, Bob's Brain, Bob's Curse, and Ipecac. Yeah, not a good transformation, you guys. One of the hardest to obtain, because again, a lot of these items in the transformation are in the treasure room pool. And guess what? The treasure room pool is still super bloated with items. So comparing this to something like Fungi, where the issue with that transformation is you're probably not going to be finding enough items in the treasure room pool to get that transformation, this suffers from that, but even more. And on top of like being one of the most difficult transformations to obtain, it is absolutely useless. I mean, I'm being completely nice. I gave it a 1 out of 4 usefulness, just because the poison immunity can help you from the mushroom explosions. Neat. But on top of that, hey, I mean, I guess you're getting a green Aquarius for free. Wowee, creep on the ground. That's crazy good, right? Anyways, like likelihood to obtain, it's a complete 0. Okay, the usefulness is like a 1, but like it's probably a little more than Fungi in my opinion, but like not by much. It's gonna be going like right there. All right, next up is Spun. What the Spun transformation does, it gives you a +2 flat damage up on top of a 0.15 speed increase. I know right after you get the transformation as well, it will spawn a random pill as well. So, this is actually a really, really good transformation that's actually not too hard to obtain, at least in comparison to other transformations here. Which is why I gave it a 3 out of 4 to obtain the transformation, and a 4 out of 4 of usefulness. Getting damage is crazy. Getting some additional speed is just so nice. But the +2 damage, that's massive. But the items here for the Spun transformation, let me get into those just a little bit. There are only 8 items in this transformation, which you may think, Matt, that's not too many items. Why would you say it's a 3 out of 4 out of likelihood to obtain? The majority, if not all of these items, come from the boss room pool. And the boss room pool is not that extensive. I mean, there's a good amount of items in there, but when comparing to things like the treasure room or even the devil pool, the boss room item pool is so much smaller than those. So this is actually an easier thing to obtain. So 3 out of 4 for likelihood to obtain. And if you're someone like Isaac, you can reroll the boss pool to get more of the needles to then help towards the transformation, which is really cool. It's really nice. Do drugs, everybody. Anyways, it's a 3 out of 4 for likelihood to obtain, a 4 out of 4 for usefulness. Sadly, he's going to be hiding behind Guppy, so I'll just like put him right down here. He's like hiding right there. Okay, that's where he is. Maybe he should go like more over here. He's hiding right behind Guppy. Now, next up is one of the most likely to obtain transformations out there is the Yes Mother transformation. Now, this one here has 22 items in total that make up its transformation, and a lot of them are very likely to see. They're in a lot of different pools. They're even in the devil room, the shop, the treasure room, the boss room pool. You can find items for this transformation basically anywhere you can think of. But what this transformation does, Isaac gains a stationary knife that trails directly behind him, and this knife will synergize like Mom's knife would. Now, looking at the wiki here, the knife does actually 2 times Isaac's tear damage per tick against an enemy that runs into it. So don't get me wrong, it does very decent amount of damage. But in all likelihood, you will never use this correctly unless you have something like, a reverse... No, not even a reverse, like a chariot card or reverse chariot card. If you have non-leaf, you can make use of this. This is why it's not a 0 out of 4. It has some very, very, very slight usefulness. Maybe something against flies that are chasing you, the goblins that are chasing you. You can slowly run and trail them right behind you to make the knife do damage. I think you are clinically insane if you are trying to use this knife offensively. I think majority of this time, the knife will just be used to accidentally do damage, and it may help you out in some scenarios where maybe a boss is just running straight into you. Maybe like during the mother fight where she's doing the whole thing where she jumps through the screen. You can just stand there and like tank some damage, but then the butt knife would do damage to her. I mean, there's some uses. Very, very minuscule uses, but there are still uses there. So with that being said, it's like, you're gonna be obtaining this in most of your runs, if I'm gonna be straight up honest with you. Like, all likelihood, you're gonna be obtaining it. Now, the usefulness is like, I graciously gave it a 1. I'm putting it right there, right below the line. It's like, it's not useful in the slightest, but like, you'll have it, which is cool, I guess. So it is going there. Next transformation up here is Conjoined. So Conjoined is actually one of my favorite transformations, just because I think it's kind of wacky and silly, and it is fairly good. But what this one does here, it adds 2 tumors to the side of Isaac's head, which shoot diagonally from yourself. So think of the eyes in the dunce cap, which makes you shoot diagonally, but on top of the thing shooting diagonally, you still shoot straight. So it's still very nice to have. It just covers a more broad area with your tears, which may not directly do damage to the enemy, but it helps definitely corral enemies down. And even if it's a larger enemy, it could probably deal damage there. But on top of that, okay, hear me out. You have homing. Okay, if you have any kind of homing at all, this is absolutely fantastic. All of the tears you're shooting will most likely do damage to the enemy, which is always nice. DPS up, let's go. But the downside to the Conjoined transformation, which is where I do see some arguments saying this is a bad transformation, is it gives you a 0.3 damage and tears down. Now, getting any kind of stat down is not good most of the time, but in this case here where you're shooting additional tears, and in all likelihood you may obtain some kind of homing throughout the entirety of your run, which I do think is fairly likely to get. So even though you get a damage and tears down, I think it's still such a good thing to get. I think it helps you a lot with focusing more on dodging and less on aiming your shots, which at the end of the day is how you win the game. Focus on your dodging, you'll do damage eventually, right? That's my mindset. Anyways, there are 31 items that are part of this transformation. Yeah, 31. I think this is the transformation with the most items in it. So you are most likely to obtain this transformation, that alongside the Yes Mother transformation, but that's a different story. But all these are little baby guys. Again, similar to the Yes Mother transformation, a lot of these 31 items are in a whole bunch of different pools. In the Angel Room pool, in the Secret Room pool, in the shop, in the Treasure Room, in the Devil, in the Red Room. There's so many different places you can find little buddies. And there's even a trinket on top of that that helps you find even more buddies. Divorce Papers. It's the one that makes the shops only sell little baby guys that help you with Conjoined. It is a very likely transformation you will find throughout most of your runs here. And on top of it being very likely, it is pretty useful as well. I put it as a likelihood to obtain as a 4, and the overall usefulness around a 3. I would put it slightly above Seraphim in terms of usefulness here. So I think it's going basically right in the line here. Next up is the Leviathan transformation. Basically, Seraphim's edgy little twin over here, being edgy and dark and Cthulhu, ooh, spooky. Anyways, this one grants flight. It gives you 2 black hearts in comparison to Seraphim's 3 soul hearts. So in my opinion, this is actually just a slightly worse Seraphim just because it gives you a little bit less health. But again, the usefulness of both this and Seraphim and the other things that give flight. Well, the other things that give flight is that you get flight. Okay, flight is nice, the health on top of it. It's just a little thing on top to make it even more cool, in my opinion. Now, the items that are in this transformation, there are 11 in total, all coming from the Devil Room pool. Most likely, I'm revisiting them. Pentagram is not in the Devil Room pool. Most of them in the Devil Room pool is what I'm getting at here. So, similar to Seraphim, as long as you're going Devils, you will most likely be able to get the Leviathan transformation. And in my opinion, it's probably a little more likely to get Leviathan than Seraphim, just because you can take more than one item in the Devil Room pool, while Angels you are exclusively limited to a single item to pick up. So Leviathan is probably a little more likely to obtain than Seraphim, but they're still very, very close, just because you're getting the chance for a deal basically just as often. So for Leviathan here, it is a 3 out of 3 to likelihood to obtain, and a 3 out of 3 for usefulness. I will put a little higher than Seraphim in terms of likelihood, but in terms of the actual rank, I would say, again, Leviathan is a little worse just because it gives a little less health, but they're still very, very similar as to where they are. So next up is the Oh Crap transformation. Now, this is a transformation that makes me kind of confused, not going to lie. What this one does, whenever you destroy a pile of poop, it restores half of a red heart. Now, this one here is just kind of confusing to me because I don't really see the usefulness here. I know there is some usefulness, don't get me wrong. Basically, if you're a red heart container character only, then you need some more HP. You can destroy poops, and wow, you get more HP. So there is usefulness in terms of getting the health back, to abuse that health to play, Devil Beggars, the blood donation machines, things like that. But in terms of actual usefulness, I don't think there's much there. Because, like, even on someone like Blue Baby, where you start with one of the items that's in the transformation, the poo, you can't get red hearts. You can only get soul hearts, and it does nothing for characters that don't have soul hearts. And on top of that, poops stop spawning after a certain point in the game. They become more of a rarity after the basement and after the first few floors. So if you're on a later floor like the womb, you're probably not going to be finding many poops, if any. And even after that, you're probably going to be finding even less. Now, with that being said, the items in the transformation, again, like the poop, like flush, like E. coli, you can somehow make the poops yourself to then heal off of them. That I do think there is some usefulness there, but I think if you're at that point where you're trying to abuse the poops to heal yourself, I think you're already struggling as is, and this transformation will not help you at all. I think the main benefits of this transformation is just basically using the additional red heart generation you can get to abuse things like the blood donation machine to get more money, or the demon beggar to try to get an item or more health back. So I don't think it's that useful. I do think there is some uses, don't get me wrong, but it's not that good. And on top of that, there are only 10 items in this transformation, and this suffers a lot from the same issues that Fun Guy does, that Bob does, where a lot of the items here are in the treasure room pool, and because the treasure room is so bloated, this is going to be one of the harder transformations to get. So you're most likely not even going to be attaining this one. I'd say like the same level as these guys here. In terms of usefulness, maybe it's a little bit better than Fun Guy here. I'm going to put it a little bit, maybe on the same level, and just kind of hiding right above Fun Guy right there. All right, next up, another really cool transformation in my opinion, Bookworm. What this one does, roughly 25% of the time, I don't have the exact percentage, but roughly 25% of the time, Isaac will shoot an additional tier like 2020. So this is crazy, crazy, crazy good just because it is additional DPS out that you will get. There is no damage down, fire rate down like there is with 2020 or Conjoined. This is just additional damage you get on top of you shooting. And on top of that, unlike Conjoined where the additional tiers you fire are going out into Narnia, the ones here for Bookworm go completely straight. As it says, it's exactly like 2020, where most of the time the tiers you will be firing will be hitting the enemies you're aiming at here. So this is a crazy good transformation in my opinion, and it's one of the easiest to obtain. Now, there are only 15 items in this transformation, but basically the items that are in this transformation pool are all books. And you know what has a dedicated room just for books? Oh, the library. So basically, Bookworm has its own dedicated room. And most of the time, if you find a single library, you will get the transformation. But even in the case where you don't find a library, there are books scattered around so many different pools. They're in the Devil Room pool with Satanic Bible. They're in the Angel Room pool with the other books that's in the Angel Room pool. Like the Bible. The Bible's also in the shop. There are books in the Treasure Room. You can find books anywhere. Now, at the end of the day, the usefulness in the books aren't, the books aren't the useful part here. The useful part here is touching 3 of them, and boom, bam, you shoot extra tears 25% of the time, which means you do extra damage 25% of the time. Anyways, this is probably the best transformation and the easiest one to get. I'm saying the best, quote unquote. Guppy is still a 5 out of 4 in terms of usefulness here. Don't get me wrong, but Bookworm is like vibing up here in the corner. He deserves his little medal because it's so easy to obtain and it is super useful. There are no drawbacks at all. Next up here, a thing you may not even know is the transformation, the adult transformation. Now, this is a weird one, where the only way to obtain this transformation is by eating 3 puberty pills, which is why the likelihood for this is a 0.5, a rare 0.5 on my list, I know. So, it's either you have this pill in rotation, and therefore you will maybe get the transformation, or the pill's just not in rotation at all, and it's literally impossible for you to get. But even if the pill is in rotation, there's no guarantee you find 3 of the same pill on one run. And even if you do, why do you care about 1 additional red heart container? Now, it is nice to have. Don't get me wrong. Additional health will always be useful unless you're playing like the Keeper or the Lost, where it's not going to do anything for you. But still, having 1 more HP, exactly like Fun Guy, there is usefulness in having more HP on characters that can have more HP. But you're never going to find this. And when you do, you're not going to be that excited for it. It's there. It's kind of cool, I guess. But likelihood to obtain is here. The usefulness is exactly the same as Fun Guy. So they're just vibing next to each other, having a bad time. Next up, the transformation I have the most problems with just as a person playing the Binding of Isaac is Spider Baby. So what Spider Baby does, it spawns a spider familiar that applies random status effects to enemies that come in contact with it. So think in your head, if you've never seen this transformation before, the item Spider Mod. You know how Spider Mod kind of sits there, wanders around the room? At least Spider Mod shows you the health of enemies. But what Spider Baby does here is basically you get Spider Mod, exactly Spider Mod, but without the cool things about Spider Mod. It just does nothing. This does absolutely nothing. Maybe it applies poison to a single enemy, but the length of the poison is not even enough to kill even a fly or something. Okay, this is not good. The spider it spawns doesn't even go after enemies. It just wanders around the room, bonks into walls, has no purpose in life. The spider needs to go to college or something. They need to get something. So I'm happy to see the Spider Baby transformation thing pop up on my screen. You get some cool fangs when you're Spider Baby. Look how cool Isaac looks. That's probably the coolest thing about this transformation. And on top of that, there are only 16 items in this transformation. I put a likelihood as a 2. It could probably go lower as a 1 or a 1.5, something like that. Because again, this suffers the same kind of issues where a lot of the items in this transformation are in the treasure room pool. So even though there's a decent amount of items in it, you're probably not going to get the transformation. You're probably just not going to get it. So, likelihood to obtain is probably a 1.5. The usefulness is down here. So it's going to be covering up the rest of the board for the rest of the video. I'm so sorry. That's just how it has to go. So next one up here doesn't actually have a little graphic, so it just looks like Isaac, but Stompy, the Stompy transformation. This one actually isn't super bad, but what this one does, taking damage has a chance to spawn rock waves, similar to the Wait What active item, as well as Isaac can now break obstacles by walking over them. Now there is some solid usefulness here to being able to break obstacles. I put it as a 2 out of 4 in terms of usefulness here. I'm not even counting the rock waves that happen whenever you get hit. Those are just kind of there in case you need some additional help. But as long as you don't skill issue, you'll never even see that happen. But in terms of being able to break rocks, you basically have infinite bombs. The only thing this can't do is it cannot open up secret rooms, which is kind of stinky. But you can still break tinted rocks for free, super secret tinted rocks for free, pots, other things, skulls. You can get free cards. The only annoying part of being able to break things by walking over them is mushrooms. Mushrooms and TNT barrels, you can accidentally walk into those and forget you have Stompy, and then boom bam, you now explode because wow, how cool is that? So you just gotta be careful for that whenever you do have this transformation. The other kind of complicated part about this transformation is there an item here, Leo, that actually just gives you Stompy outright. So Leo will give you Stompy, just isn't in it of itself, but the other way to obtain Stompy is by picking up 3 size ups. And oddly enough, there's only one other item in the entire game that gives you a size up, which is Magic Mushroom. So if you take a single Magic Mushroom and then 1 that makes you larger pills, you will obtain the Stompy transformation. If you don't have Magic Mush, it'll take 3 1 makes you larger pills, or I guess 3 Magic Mushrooms if you have like Diplopia, I guess. Kind of a weird thing to obtain, but being able to break rocks is nice to have. I didn't put it as super high. Maybe you can go a little higher than a 2 out of 4 in terms of usefulness, because there is a lot of use in being able to break rocks by walking over them. Again, it's basically infinite bombs, and then you can save your bombs for actual combat, or to exclusively find secret rooms, which will then help you further out in the run. But likelihood to obtain, you're probably not going to be obtaining this in most runs unless you just find Leo, which is possible. You can just find Leo, that happens. But again, it's like a 1, but like maybe it's like up here. Okay, it's like a little worse than having flight in my opinion, but like it's sitting like right there. Next transformation, and last transformation up, you may not even think is a transformation, but hey, the game says it's a transformation. Who am I to talk against the game here? But Super Bum. So what Super Bum does is you need 3 specific items in the entire game. And only these 3 items. You cannot even get duplicates of the one and it counts towards the transformation. No, you need these 3 individual items in order to get this transformation. You need a Bum Friend, you need a Dark Bum, and you need a Key Bum. You need all 3 of these guys, and then they will combine into the Super Bum. But what this guy does, he picks up all the collectibles as Bum Friend, Dark Bum, and Key Bum would do. But instead of paying out with their usual items, this guy pays out double what they would typically pay out with. So at the end of the day, this is actually a crazy good transformation. Being able to turn your red hearts you don't need into 2 cards, 2 black hearts, 2 pills. Being able to turn additional money you don't need anymore into chests, which then give you keys or bombs, which could be useful to you. Or turning the keys you get into 2 golden chests or to 2 red chests or something like that. It's very good. It's crazy nice to get. I don't know. The only downside of Super Bum is you are never going to get it. You are never going to get these 3 specific items in all likelihood. I think I've played the game for around 1,500 hours total. I have never found 1 Super Bum. I have never gotten this transformation once in my life. Now, good for me. I have 2 Dead Gods. You don't need to get Super Bum in order to get your Dead God. But if I did, I would be down 2 Dead Gods just to 1 single transformation, which I have never gotten before. You are never going to be attaining this unless you are super lucky, or you find like a death cert in order to get your 3rd bum that you need. Because on top of it, these bums are in different pools as well. Obviously the Bum Friend and Bum Friend and Key Bum, those guys are in the treasure room pool. Again, same issues as all the other ones here. Super bloated pool. But the Dark Bum is in the Devil Room pool, which means you need to go to the Devil Room to get one of the bums, and then you can't go anywhere else, and then you just need to get lucky in the treasure room pool, and then I don't know. It's like, listen, it's super cool in my opinion. The little animation that plays whenever you do get Super Bum is pretty neat and very exciting to get. But I've never seen it like naturally myself. I've cheated it in. I'll say it. I cheated in the game. Super Bum, he's flying like way up the list, but he's staying like way over here. So he's gonna go like right there. So anyways, guys, that's the list. I doubt I have anything that's controversial and a bad take on this list at all. And hey, if you're watching this the day it comes out, I'm doing a live thing tomorrow. The next Binding of Isaac quiz is with you. I'm doing it live against my audience. Come join in twitch.tv/anothermatt_ on Twitch. Come hang out. Anyways, thanks for watching the video. Goodbye.